Do you ever find yourself at a loss of what to do for dinner for an upcoming week? Maybe you have people coming in from town to visit. Maybe you are going out of town for work. Maybe you're going to be laid up because you're having a surgery or something like that. And you know that you need to get some meals into the refrigerator or the freezer for your family so that they're taken care of when you can't be there to cook dinner. That's what we are going to be doing tonight on this edition of Tasty Tuesday. Welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead. My name is Kelly. On my channel, I focus on food, growing it, preparing it, and preserving it. Today, we're going to do a twofer because I am going to get two rather large meals prepped and ready for my family to enjoy because I am going to be going out of town on a work trip for the full work week coming up. But by the time you see this, I will be back. So I'm doing some make ahead videos here because I'm going to be gone for a full week. So tonight I am going to be doing a super simple, easy, delicious, cheesy beef and rice skillet dish that is going to only take about 30 minutes from start to finish. And I am also going to be doing an incredibly decadent baked mac and cheese. Both of these can be pre-cooked and then either frozen or just put into the refrigerator with an easy reheat. So let's get started. So to start, I have got my 8-quart stock pot here filled about halfway with water. This is going to be cooking our pasta once it comes to a boil. And I've got my large 12-inch cast iron skillet here on the stove. To this skillet, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil. And you can certainly measure that out. I'm just going to eyeball that. I'm turning this onto a medium-high heat. We just don't want the sausage to burn. So a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of the skillet. And next I am going to add in 2 pounds of ground sausage. Now, I will put a recipe card in this video for a single serving of this, but I'm going to be doing a double recipe, so I'm doubling everything. But look for the recipe card if you want the single recipe version. This is sausage that I get once a year from a local farmer. And I'm still working through my 2025 bundle. Have not yet placed my I'm still working through my 2024 bundle. Have not yet placed my order for 2025. Sorry, my brain was in work mode there because our fiscal years are ahead of our calendar year. So anyway, it's 2024. I'm still working through my 2024 bundle. I'm going to use this meat masher. It's kind of a star-like tool just to get the sausage evenly spread throughout the pan. And we're going to let that cook for a few minutes until it starts to brown. I have a mix of sausage in here, by the way. You can use whatever sausage you like. I have a mix of just plain pork sausage and then a mix of spicy sausage as well. I'm going to stir this up just a little bit. So the bottom is starting to brown, which is great. We're almost ready to move on and add some additional ingredients. I just want to see a little less pink before I do that. That looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead now and add some additional ingredients in here. I've got 2 cloves of garlic. Remember, I'm doubling this recipe. So if you're making it times 1, it would be 1 clove of garlic. And I'm just going to mince that right in. And then I have 1 cup of diced onion. I like to dice my onions before I get started because they tend to make me cry a lot. I don't know why the ones I get locally here are just so strong with whatever chemical makes you cry. And then to that, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of tarragon. This is freeze-dried tarragon that I grew in 2023. So this is about 1 tablespoon, and I'm just going to kind of wake it up and put it into small pieces because these are whole leaves. The tarragon has kind of a little bit of a licoricey flavor to it, and it's going to pair really well with the cheeses and the other spices that we're doing in here. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of some dried thyme. This is freeze-dried from the garden this year or last year. So about 1 tablespoon of that. And thyme is such a lovely flavor this time of year to me. The smell of thyme means fall, it means Thanksgiving or holiday meals. I love it. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. So that means, you know, however much salt and pepper you like. If you like it really salty, add a lot. The spicy sausage that is in here comes salted, so I don't need to add too much salt. The plain pork sausage does not have any salt in it. And some pepper as well. That was maybe half a teaspoon, but again, salt and pepper is always to taste or to your taste preference. And then we're just gonna get that mixed around. And we're gonna cook this for 2 to 3 minutes, just until, this is already smelling incredible, just until those onions start to get translucent. And our water over here is just starting to simmer, so hopefully we'll be up at a boil soon. This is actually for the baked mac and cheese, and I'm getting this step out of the way so I can have the pan or the skillet available to cook the beef and rice dish. And because I'm cooking sausage in here with the onions and the garlic, we're just building flavor in that pan, which is gonna make an impact on our next dish. All right, and I don't need this anymore. It has a lot of raw ground pork on it, so we're gonna switch over to a spatula to continue cooking this. Now, you want to be sure that you completely cook your sausage through on this, because when it goes into the oven, it's really just to kind of heat things through and brown the top of the dish. So you want your sausage fully cooked before you remove it from this pan. All right, that is almost done. So I'm just gonna get a bowl ready because we're just gonna transfer that to a bowl and set it aside while we cook the other dish and while the pasta cooks. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off and just get this into a bowl. And this is just gonna get set aside. Now I'm gonna add 1 pound of ground beef to the skillet, and this is for the cheesy beef and rice skillet meal. Flame is on about a medium to a medium high, and we are just gonna start to get this ground beef browned up. And in just a minute, when this is just a little bit more brown, I'm gonna add some additional ingredients. So I've got 3 cloves of garlic that I'm gonna mince into the pan. I've got 1 medium onion diced down that's gonna go in. I've got about a half a cup of frozen sweet peas that I'm gonna put in there. And I've got about half a cup of diced bell pepper here. This is freeze-dried diced pepper from the 2023 garden or 2022 garden, one or the other. And those are gonna rehydrate just fine in this dish. So convenient to have freeze-dried ingredients on hand from, you know, that particular year was a bumper year for peppers. I was literally swimming in peppers, just insane amount of peppers, hundreds and hundreds of them. All different varieties, sweet peppers, bell peppers, hot peppers, jalapenos, and then into the kind of peppers that you want to kill somebody with, the ghost peppers, and I don't even remember the scorpion peppers and all sorts. But We had so many. In fact, we started so many pepper plants, I didn't even have enough room to put them in the garden. So I had gone out and bought like these 7 to 10-inch nursery pots, and that's what they grew up in. Because I mean, when I say I had a bumper year, I mean from seed to seedling to transplant. It was insane. And I couldn't throw them away, nor could I give any more peppers away. So what I did was I just stuck those 7 to 10-inch nursery pots outside in the garden along the fence line, and they rooted. They rooted out the drainage holes. They grew to be like 4-foot tall peppers. I was swimming in peppers. If I didn't plant any peppers probably for the next 3 years coming, I would still have peppers to use at my leisure. So I am thrilled to use freeze-dried peppers whenever I have the opportunity to, because I've got a lot of them. All right, this is almost all the way browned through. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw in that onion, the peas, which are still kind of frozen in a little bit of a block here, but they will warm up. There we go. Those freeze-dried diced bell peppers, and then the minced garlic. And I'm gonna cook this for 3 to 5 minutes until those onions look like they're starting to get translucent. And in the meantime, our pot of water is almost at a rolling boil. We're just seeing those big bubbles come up from the bottom now. And this dish looks very colorful, very healthy. You got a lot of different color combinations, vitamins, nutrients, things like that going on in here. So this is truly a one skillet meal with your protein and your veg, and then with the rice we'll have our carb as well. This is going to be delicious. All right, to the skillet I am going to add one 14.5-ounce can of diced tomatoes with the juice. And I'm also going to add 1.5 cups of beef broth, since I'm cooking beef. And I don't want to open a whole quart of that. So I do have powdered beef broth that I get from Azure Standard. So I've got this little cup here that has one of these wire balls that I'm going to drop in. And then this is 12 ounces or 1.5 cups of warm water. And I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of this to that, just to make an instant beef broth. And that ball that's inside of this is going to break it up and just help it incorporate well. We're going to pour that right in. I'm going to give everything a little mix. And so now we have plenty of liquid in here to fully rehydrate those freeze-dried peppers. I'm going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce to this, about 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons, somewhere along that range. It adds a depth of flavor that's really good with beef. And I'm going to put in 1 cup of dry, medium to long grain rice. I think this is basmati rice, because I keep them in the white 5-gallon buckets, and I don't label what kind of rice it is. So, but most of the time I buy either jasmine or basmati, and I think this is basmati. All right, this is at a good boil. So I am just going to put a lid on it. This is the lid to my largest stock pot. It fits this pan pretty well. And we're going to reduce that to simmer, and in 20 to 25 minutes that rice will be done, and we'll move on to the next step to finish it off. And meanwhile, over here, our Water is up to a boil, so I'm gonna do a really healthy dose of salt in there to help flavor the pasta. And when that comes back up to a boil with the salt, we're gonna add that pasta in. I'm using shells. You can use elbow, you can use penne, you can use whatever kind of pasta you want. But the request was shells, so that's what I'm doing. And I'm using 2 1-pound boxes again because I'm doubling this. And we're gonna cook that according to the directions for al dente, which looks like it's about 8 minutes once it comes back up to a boil. That shouldn't take too long, so I'll meet you back here when the pasta is cooked and we're ready to move on to the next step. We've got about 3 more minutes on the pasta. The skillet dish is coming along nicely, so I'm gonna go ahead and preheat the oven now to 375 degrees, so it's warm and ready when we are ready to put our pasta inside. When the pasta is done, I'm gonna go ahead and drain it in the sink, and I'm gonna give it a pretty good rinse. Then I'm gonna add it to my casserole dish, and I'm gonna move this skillet over to the side so I can work in this pan. I like to work in the pan that's closest to me here at my prep station. So you're gonna see some things being moved around as soon as that pasta is done. Now we're gonna move on to our cheese sauce. A lot of times I tout on my channel the health benefits of the food and how I like to serve my family and myself and my dogs really healthy, nutritious food for overall health. And it may seem like these dishes are not necessarily that healthy for you, but this does have all your veg in it, and the ground beef does bring a lot in terms of iron and other things that your body needs. And the mac and cheese, specifically I used thyme and tarragon in there because those are bringing a wealth of benefits to you as well. Tarragon is loaded with manganese, iron, and with potassium. So they are amazing for brain health, for growth and development, for heart health, for decreasing inflammation, decreasing pain associated with things like osteoarthritis. It's also really good for sleep, to improve the quality of your sleep. So we're sneaking some really good ingredients in what otherwise might be seen as not so healthy of a meal. You can have some comfort food once in a while, but try to sneak in the good stuff too. Thyme, on the other hand, is loaded with vitamin A and vitamin C. It's also really high in copper, fiber, iron, and also manganese. So beautiful additions to your diet. And herbs are a really easy way to get additional nutrients in, especially if you have picky eaters at home. All right, oven is preheating, the pasta is draining, and let's move on to the sauce. I'm gonna start with 2 tablespoons of butter in the skillet, and I'm eyeballing that because this is my Rumiano butter that doesn't have the nice little marks that some of your stick butters have. And I'm gonna get that melted down, and then we're gonna make a roux with some flour as the base for our cheese sauce. All right, with the butter melted, I'm gonna add in my flour. So 2 tablespoons of fat to 2 tablespoons of flour. And once you get this flour in the pan, you wanna get it moving, and you wanna whisk it constantly for a minute or 2. You wanna get that flour flavor or taste cooked off of your roux. So just keep moving it around the pan. You don't want it to burn. My flame right now is set to a medium low. And then I am going to add in 2 cups of heavy cream and constantly whisking while I add that, and pouring it in slowly and whisking the whole time, making sure everything gets well incorporated and not lumpy. Now I'm gonna add some spices in here. So once again, we're gonna do salt and pepper to taste. So about a teaspoon of salt for me, more or less for you, and about the same amount of black pepper. If I had white pepper, I would use that. And And then we're gonna add some nutmeg. Nutmeg in a cream sauce is absolutely phenomenal in flavor, but just a little. You don't wanna add too much. So I'm gonna go in with a 1/4 teaspoon. And we're gonna get that mixed through. Now I'm going to add the cheese. So I have 12 ounces of Swiss and 6 ounces of cheddar shredded. This is extra sharp, and normally I would make this with Gruyere cheese, but I didn't have any, and I'm just going to use what I have. I had regular Swiss. The recipe will be written with the Gruyere because I'm telling you, it takes this mac and cheese over the top. But this is still going to be delicious. So we're just going to drop some shredded cheese in, continue to whisk until all the cheese has been added and is melted through. Keep in mind, this is a double recipe, so I know it's a lot of cheese, but it is for 2 pounds of pasta. We're still on a medium-low heat as well. The mixing of the Swiss or the Gruyere along with the cheddar just gives it an elevated flavor, not your child's mac and cheese type dish. It's truly delicious. I might need to go in with a little more of that heavy cream. This is pretty thick. I might have to check my recipe again and make sure that 2 cups was double, or if it was supposed to be 2 cups to start. So I'm gonna check that real quick. It was 2 cups for a single, so I've gotta add 2 more cups of cream in here. I thought that looked thick. Again, I'm just gonna pour that in slowly, let it acclimate to the heat of the pan and mix in with that cheese and that roux. There we go, that's looking better. Very creamy, very cheesy. All right, I'm gonna give it a little taste test just to be sure on the spices, because we are just about finished here. And before we commit it to the oven, I wanna be sure we don't wanna make any adjustments. I'm gonna add a little bit more salt and a little bit more pepper. I'm not tasting any of that. Give that another good mix. And one more taste. This looks lovely. Perfect. Here we go on that cheese sauce. It is just lovely. And you can see just how creamy and luxurious that looks. All right, let's get this big casserole dish assembled. I'm gonna start just by pouring in our drained and rinsed pasta. I'm gonna have to break that down a little bit, kind of mold it to the shape of the colander. There we go. This pan almost isn't big enough, and it may not be big enough for 2 pounds of pasta, because we still have the sausage to add back in here as well as the cheese. So I think I'm gonna split this into another pan as well. And I can probably even just put this one in the freezer without baking it, and that will give another meal option down the road. That looks better. So we've got 2 casserole dishes here. Now I'm gonna put the sausage on top. I'll start with a small pan to make sure that it gets its fair share. And then the rest can go in this pan. I'm gonna reserve just a little to see if I wanna add any more back to the small pan or if that one has plenty. This smells incredible. I can smell the spices that we added, that tarragon and that thyme. If I was making this for me to consume, I would have also added some red pepper. That's really good in here, but you know, I like my heat. I like food that has a little bit of a kick to it. All right, that looks good. I'm happy with that. Let's see what this one looks like. All right, I'm just gonna divide them up evenly because they both look pretty good. I want to make sure that there's sausage in every part of this so that when you go to serve it, you don't have a big plate full of just the pasta without the sausage. Now I'm going to pour the cheese sauce over and we're going to mix that through. And again, I'm going to reserve some just to make sure that they both have adequate amount. Oh, this looks really good. It smells really good. All right, this one looks okay. It could use more of the cheese sauce if there's some available, but it also looks just fine, just like that. I will bring you over and give you a look here in just a second. And this one does look a tad cheesier, so I'm gonna add the rest of the cheese sauce into the larger pan. I do have here a bowl of 1.5 cups of Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, I think I said that right, and 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs mixed together. And I have about 3 tablespoons of butter that I melted in the microwave. And I'm gonna marry those 2 together. And then we're gonna pour that over the top and pop it into the oven until everything heats up and those breadcrumbs with the butter infused on them that gets golden brown. But I'm not going to do that to this pan because this pan I'm just gonna stick in a freezer somewhere. I'm gonna have to find room, but I'll let it cool down and we're gonna set this aside for another meal another time. So here I've got my breadcrumbs and here is this massive, heavy pan of sausage baked mac and cheese. I'm gonna pour my butter into these breadcrumbs. And I'm gonna mix those through with a fork so my fingers don't get all buttery and so I can run the tines of the fork through that mixture and get as much butter as possible on every little piece of breadcrumb and cheese. Mac and cheese with that breadcrumb topping is really hard to resist, isn't it? It's just that little extra something that makes that dish even more cozy and delicious. I'm gonna even that out so that it browns evenly in the dish. Beautiful. This is ready to go into the oven. The oven is preheated, 375. This is not gonna take long to brown, and we are now gonna finish with that skillet meal because that is ready as well. And the only thing left to do here, I've moved it off of the heat. Oh, that smells great. It smells incredibly flavorful. The rice looks very tender. It just looks delicious. I'm just gonna get it stirred up. Make sure nothing is sticking on the bottom of this pan. It looks pretty good. Yep, looks pretty good. Just gonna get everything mixed through. Now that it's off the heat, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar to the top. And we're going to put the lid back on this and just let the heat that is captured inside the pan. One of the trademarks of a cast iron skillet is its ability to heat evenly and maintain that heat. So there's still enough heat in there to melt this cheese as long as there is a lid on here. So we're just going to let that sit for a couple of minutes. All right, 10 minutes in the oven and that mac and cheese should be done. That looks fantastic and it smells incredible. Now let's take a look at dish number 2, our 1 skillet cheesy beef and rice dish. We got 3 make-ahead meals done. I know we were only planning on 2, but this was just really too much to put into the pan. And if you don't like a breadcrumb topping on top of your mac and cheese, this is ready to go. This is absolutely delicious. I'm gonna let this fully cool down and then I'll wrap it up. We'll put that in the freezer and we will have that for another meal night. This, you can put this in a freezer container, pop it into your freezer, and then put it into a casserole dish and reheat it in the oven if you wanted to do this as a make-ahead. It's delicious. You can eat it as is, just like this as well. And with this, same thing. You could pop this into the freezer once it's cooled down and just heat it up in the oven, maybe on about 325, 350 degrees until it warms back through. So my family is gonna have food, even though I am not gonna be here for the next 5 full days. Right? Let me give you a close-up and then we'll get this plated up. Here we have our cheesy beef and rice dish. You've got the tomatoes, you've got the peppers, you've got the onions, you've got the peas. So you got a lot of really good veg going on in there. And then of course, we've got that beef broth, some shredded cheese, and that ground beef. This is comfort food at its finest. Here on the mac and cheese that has the breadcrumb topping, you can see how golden it got. It just looks incredible. It looks so inviting and so delicious. I can't wait to give this a try. I can see little bits of green from that tarragon and thyme that is in here, adding those beautiful health benefits for you. That creamy cheese sauce with that tiny little bit of nutmeg, the onions, the garlic. This is not your kids' mac and cheese. With that sausage in here, this is going to be utterly delicious. I promise you, this is my favorite mac and cheese dish. It's delicious. But if you are going to give it a try, please try it per the recipe card and use the Gruyere cheese. It just elevates it like 10 notches. This is still going to be great, but with the Gruyere, oh, it's incredible. If you're not a fan of breadcrumb toppings, this is good to go as is. We've got a nice even layer of the cheese sauce on top of all of those pasta shells and that beautiful sausage. And again, of course, the thyme and the tarragon. This is lovely too, absolutely delicious. If you're not a fan of breadcrumbs, this is delicious just like this. Now, this food is not for me, but I'm gonna go ahead and do a taste test for you anyway, but just a little one, because I really do wanna make sure that while I'm gone, there is good food to be had. There's a lot of canned food upstairs, freeze-dried food, dehydrated food, you name it, but who doesn't like, you know, an already put together meal that all you have to do is heat to enjoy? And since both of these are the same, just one has breadcrumbs, one does not. This one's, I'm not gonna taste that one. That's for another time altogether. So we'll give this a try. All right, here we go. And truth be told, I just did this taste test, but I didn't hit record. So we're gonna do that again, but I can assure you that this is delicious. So this cheesy beef rice 1 skillet meal is delicious. The freeze-dried peppers in here came out beautiful. You could not tell that they had been freeze-dried. The rice is cooked perfectly. The ground beef tastes delicious. You know, you got that onion and that garlic in there and the sweetness of the peas. You could even dice up some carrots if you wanted to and put that in here. And that little bit of melted cheese over the top just kind of holds everything together and gives you a nice bite. Over here on the mac and cheese, the cheese sauce came out perfect, and it is, sausage is the perfect pairing for that cheese sauce. It is so creamy. The breadcrumb toppings give a little bit of a crunch in your mouth, so if you like that, you should love this. I can taste the thyme and the tarragon and that little bit of garlic and a little bit of onion in here as well. And the flavor of the cheese is really good. However, it is even better with the Gruyere cheese. So win, win, win. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Tasty Tuesday Double Dinner Edition. My name is Kelly. You're at A Better Choice Homestead. I do hope you come back and visit again soon.